Hello and welcome to the English Podcast Lab, the show where we take a deep dive into some fascinating topics. I'm Mike, your host for this deep dive, and I'm super excited to be joined today by Sarah, our expert guide.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm really looking forward to this.
Me too, Sarah. Today we are diving deep into something I think we can all relate to, and that is exam stress. You know that feeling, right? We're going to explore some really practical strategies to help you, the listener, not just survive exams, but actually thrive during those really intense pressure cooker moments.
Oh, it is definitely possible, Mike. And you know what? We actually found some pretty surprising tips along the way.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you know that even something as simple as chewing gum can actually help with exam stress?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or that there's a specific breathing technique that can, literally calm your nerves. We're going to unpack all of that and more. So let's get started. Sarah, can you give us a working definition of exam stress? What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, Mike, exam stress is essentially that feeling of tension and worry that comes with, facing a test or an exam. Now, a little bit of stress can actually be a good thing. It can keep us motivated and focused.
Right.
But when that stress becomes excessive, it really starts to work against us, impacting our performance and making it harder to, reach our goals.
So it's like that sweet spot between I'm pumped to do this and I'm totally freaking out.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. Now, how do we know when we've crossed the line from helpful stress to full-blown panic mode? Well, there are some physical, behavioral, and mental or emotional signs to watch out for.
Okay, let's break those down. So what are some of the red flags we should be looking out for?
On the physical side, you might notice things like a racing heart, tense muscles, headaches, even sweating or stomach problems.
Yeah.
Behaviorally, you might find yourself fidgeting, biting your nails, or even turning to unhealthy coping mechanisms like overeating or smoking. And then there are the mental and emotional signs.
Yeah, those are the ones that can really mess with your head.
Absolutely. We're talking about difficulty concentrating, racing thoughts, going blank during an exam, and that overwhelming feeling of fear or dread. It's like your mind just freezes up.
Yeah, it's almost like your brain is saying, nope, I'm out.
Right. And these reactions can stem from a whole bunch of different factors. It could be lifestyle issues like not getting enough sleep or eating right. It could be feeling unprepared or not having the right study techniques or even deeper psychological factors.
And I think a lot of people just assume that more study time equals less stress, but our research suggests it's not always the case. It's not just about how much you study, but how you study.
Yeah, you nailed it, Mike. Cramming all night might feel productive, but it's one of the worst things you can do. When you cram, you're basically overloading your brain, making it harder to retain and recall information. Plus, it messes with your sleep, which just adds to the stress.
The vicious cycle, for sure. So what does effective preparation actually look like?
Well, it all starts with understanding what's expected of you. Consult your syllabus, talk to your teachers, clarify any confusion you might have. This way, you're not walking into the exam feeling uncertain or anxious about what's coming.
So it's like having a roadmap instead of wandering around in the dark. Makes sense.
Precisely. Another powerful strategy is to tap into what's called context and state-dependent memory.
Okay, now you're talking my language, brain science. Tell me more about this.
It's fascinating, really. Our brains are wired to remember things better when we're in a similar environment and state of mind as when we first learn the information. So if your exam is going to be in a quiet room, try to mimic those conditions when you study.
So instead of trying to study with the TV blaring in the background, find a quiet spot in the library.
Got it. That's the idea. And it goes beyond just the physical setting. Your emotional state matters too.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. I've never thought about this before.
Think about it this way. If you're used to studying with a cup of coffee, your brain might actually perform better on test day if you have a similar amount of caffeine. It's all about recreating the conditions where you learned the material.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm definitely going to be more mindful of that. And while we're talking about effective study habits, we can't forget about the importance of good note-taking. Sarah, I have to admit, note-taking was never my strong suit. I always thought I could just rely on my memory or, the textbook.
That's a common misconception, Mike. Taking good notes isn't just about recording information. It's about actively engaging with the material. The process of writing things down helps solidify them in your memory. It's almost like you're learning it twice.
Once when you hear it in class, and again when you write it down. I see your point. And reviewing those notes regularly reinforces those neural pathways, making it easier to recall information later on. Much more effective than trying to cram everything in at the last minute.
Exactly. Now let's talk about managing your time effectively. Instead of cramming everything into one massive study session, try breaking your study time into smaller chunks spread out over several days or even weeks. This gives your brain time to process and absorb the information. It's called spaced repetition, and it's a much more effective way to learn.
So it's all about pacing yourself. Chunk it and space it. I like it.
Think about it like training for a marathon. You wouldn't try to run 26 miles the day before the race, right? You'd train gradually over time, building up your stamina. Studying is similar. It's about pacing yourself and giving your brain time to adapt.
And just like with marathon training, rest is crucial.
Absolutely. Our brains need breaks to function at their best. Aim for a break every 45 minutes or so.
What's a good way to use those breaks?
Get up, move around, stretch. Step away from your study materials completely and do something totally different to clear your head. Listen to music, go for a walk, chat with a friend, anything that helps you relax and recharge.
Okay, so we've covered preparation, knowing what to expect, studying smart, managing time. Now, what about our overall well-being during this whole process? Exams are stressful, and it's easy to let healthy habits slide. What can we do to take care of ourselves physically while we're prepping for exams?
You're absolutely right, Mike. Taking care of yourself physically is just as important as preparing mentally. One of the simplest things you can do is stay hydrated.
Water, right.
You got it. Aim for at least 8 glasses a day. Dehydration can lead to fatigue, headaches, and difficulty concentrating, all of which can make exam stress even worse.
And what about food? I know I tend to reach for sugary snacks when I'm stressed.
It's tempting, but those sugar rushes can backfire. They give you a temporary boost, but then you crash, which can leave you feeling even more drained and stressed.
So what should we be eating instead?
Focus on foods that provide sustained energy, like lean proteins, complex carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables, and healthy fats. Think nuts, seeds, whole grains, that sort of thing.
So ditch the candy bars and grab a handful of almonds instead. Got it. What about exercise? I know it's probably the last thing people want to think about when they're buried in textbooks.
I hear you. But even short bursts of physical activity can make a world of difference. It releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects, and it helps to clear your head. Plus, it can improve sleep quality, which is so important for managing stress.
So whether it's a quick jog, a yoga session, or even just dancing around to your favorite music, get that body moving. Speaking of sleep, that's another non-negotiable when it comes to managing exam stress. It's easier said than done though, right? I know my mind races when I'm trying to fall asleep the night before a big exam.
It's totally normal to feel some anxiety, but prioritizing sleep is key. Aim for a consistent sleep schedule to train your body for restful sleep. And avoid cramming late into the night because that'll only disrupt your sleep cycle and make it harder to fall asleep.
Okay, so we've got our pre-exam routine down. Prepare well, take care of ourselves, get a good night's sleep. But what about when we're actually sitting in the exam room feeling the pressure build? What strategies can we use in that moment to stay calm and focused?
Well, that's where some of those in-the-moment stress-busting techniques come in handy. And one of the simplest yet surprisingly effective strategies is, believe it or not, chewing gum.
Chewing gum. Seriously.
I know, it sounds a little strange, but research has actually shown that chewing gum can help ease anxiety.
I'm curious. Why would that be?
Well, it's thought to be related to their repetitive motion, which can, have a calming effect. Plus, it keeps your mouth busy, which might prevent you from, nervously biting your nails or your lips.
So pack a stick of gum along with your pencils and erasers. Got it.
Right.
What else can we do to combat those exam jitters?
Don't be afraid to ask for clarification if you need it.
I think a lot of people hesitate to ask questions during an exam. It's like they're worried about being judged or something.
Don't let that hold you back. If there's something you don't understand in the instructions, or you're unsure about a particular question, just raise your hand and ask. It's better to take a few seconds to clarify than to spend the rest of the exam, second-guessing yourself.
That's a great point. Now, what about when those feelings of test anxiety start to creep in? How can we recognize those symptoms and what can we do to, manage them?
It's all about self-awareness. Pay attention to those physical sensations, like those racing thoughts, sweaty palms, mental blocks that we talked about earlier. Once you recognize that you're experiencing test anxiety, you can start using some relaxation techniques.
Give us some examples. I'm ready to chill out.
Okay. One of the most effective techniques is deep breathing.
Good old-fashioned deep breathing. It never fails.
It's a classic for a reason. It helps to slow your heart rate, regulate your breathing, and just calm those racing thoughts.
Is there a specific technique we should be using? I mean, we all breathe naturally, but is there like a right way to do it for stress relief?
Yeah, there are a few different techniques, but one of the simplest is to inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4, hold your breath for a count of 7, and then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 8.
4, 7, 8.
Got it. I can remember that. What if deep breathing isn't enough? Are there other things we can try?
Absolutely. Another helpful technique is called progressive muscle relaxation.
I've heard of that. It involves like tensing and releasing different muscle groups, right?
Yes, it's a way to become more aware of tension and then consciously release it. You basically go through your body, tensing and relaxing each muscle group, starting with your toes and working your way up to your head.
It's almost like physically shaking off the stress.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
And don't hesitate to take breaks during the exam if you're allowed.
Yeah. I used to think taking a break was a sign of weakness, like I was admitting defeat.
Not at all. It's actually a very smart strategy. You know, if you're feeling overwhelmed or your brain is fried, a quick break can help you refocus and come back to the exam with fresh eyes. Get up, stretch, get some water, splash some water on your face if you need to. I like it.
Exactly. Anything to disrupt that cycle of stress and tension.
This is all great advice, Sarah. But what happens when you've tried everything and you're still feeling that overwhelming pressure? What if the exam is, like, super important and the stakes are high?
That's when it becomes essential to, put things in perspective.
Easier said than done, I know.
I hear you. But try to remember that this one exam, no matter how important it seems right now, will not define your entire future.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the moment and, lose sight of the bigger picture.
Right. Focus on what you can control, your effort, your preparation. And remember, you are capable of handling whatever comes your way. You've got this.
Okay, so we made it through the exam. We used our gum. We did our deep breathing. We took a break when we needed it. And we reminded ourselves that this too shall pass. But what about after the exam? How do we deal with that lingering stress, especially if we're not sure how we did?
That's a great question, Mike. And it brings us to the all-important post-exam recovery phase.
Okay, I'm all ears. I usually end up obsessing over every question, wondering if I got it right. It's torture.
It's tempting to dwell on the exam, but try to resist that urge. It's over, and there's nothing you can do to change your answers now, except that you did your best and shift your focus to something else.
So distract ourselves with something fun.
Yeah. Engage in activities that help you clear your mind and relax. Watch a movie, read a book, hang out with friends, do something you enjoy.
Anything to get my mind off that exam. What else can we do to recover and move on?
Reward yourself for getting through the whole experience.
Little celebration is definitely in order. I like where this is going.
And lastly, try to reframe your perspective on the exam.
What do you mean by that?
Instead of seeing it as a pass or fail event, view it as a learning opportunity. Identify your strengths and weaknesses and use that information to improve your study strategies for next time.
So even if we didn't ace it, we can still learn something valuable from the experience.
Right. Remember, your worth as a student and as a person is not defined by your exam performance.
That's so important, especially in today's high pressure academic environment. We put so much emphasis on grades and test scores that we forget there's so much more to learning and to life.
I couldn't agree more. Now, we talked about the importance of managing expectations and seeking support earlier, but I want to emphasize that reaching out for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Talk to someone you trust, whether it's a friend, family member, teacher, or counselor. Sharing your feelings and concerns can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's like that saying, a problem shared is a problem halved, right?
It really can feel that way. And remember, many schools offer counseling services specifically for students who are dealing with exam stress. Don't be afraid to take advantage of those resources.
Okay. Let's switch gears a bit and talk about some additional tips that we uncovered in our research. One that really stood out to me was the idea of managing expectations.
Yeah. Unrealistic expectations can be a major source of stress. It's so important to be realistic about what you could achieve. And part of that is, communicating your goals to others, like your family or teachers, so they can support you without adding unnecessary pressure.
So they understand what you're aiming for, but also that you're doing your best and focusing on what you can control. Makes sense.
Now, in terms of managing stress during the exam itself, we've talked about chewing gum, deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and taking breaks. Another technique that can be really helpful is to focus on your senses.
Focus on my senses. I'm intrigued. How does that work?
When we're stressed, our minds tend to race. We get caught up in those negative thought loops. Focusing on your senses can help to ground you in the present moment and break those cycles of worry.
So like paying attention to what I can see, hear, feel.
Exactly. Take a moment to notice the feel of your feet on the floor, the temperature of the air on your skin, the sounds in the room. It's like a mini meditation in the middle of the exam.
I love that. It's simple, yet powerful.
And it's something you can practice anytime, not just during exams.
True. Okay, what other nuggets of wisdom did we find in our research?
One that's especially relevant in today's digital age is the importance of unplugging.
You mean taking a break from all our devices?
Yeah. Constant screen time can be incredibly stimulating and can actually increase stress levels. It can also interfere with sleep, which we know is so important for managing stress.
So step away from the phone,
Right.
Close the laptop, give your brain a break from the digital world. Got it.
Even short periods of time unplugged can make a difference. Start with small steps, like setting aside specific times each day when you put your phone away, or limit your social media use.
I'm definitely guilty of constantly checking my phone, even when I know there's nothing important waiting for me.
It's a habit that many of us have developed, but it's worth breaking. Our brains need time to disconnect and recharge, and too much screen time can prevent that from happening.
Unplug and unwind. Got it. What else have we got?
We've talked a lot about mental and emotional strategies, but let's not forget about the power of physical movement.
Oh yeah. Get those endorphins pumping.
And it doesn't have to be anything strenuous. Even a short walk, a bike ride, or a few minutes of stretching can help to relieve stress and boost your mood.
And if we're feeling really ambitious, we could even go for a full-blown workout. I always feel amazing after a good sweat session.
Me too.
Yeah.
Exercise is such a fantastic way to, release pent-up energy and clear your head. Plus, it improves sleep quality, which we've already established is essential for managing stress.
All right, so move that body, people. What about mindfulness? Isn't that kind of like meditation? I've tried meditation before, but I always find my mind wandering.
Mindfulness doesn't have to be formal meditation. It's simply about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It could be as simple as focusing on your breath, noticing the sensations in your body, or paying attention to the sights and sounds around you.
So really being present in the moment instead of letting our thoughts, run wild.
Exactly. And the great thing about mindfulness is that you can practice it anywhere, anytime.
Like when I'm waiting in line for coffee or like commuting to work.
Exactly. It's a portable stress relief tool that you can carry with you everywhere.
I love that. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, but I think there's one more piece of the puzzle that we need to address.
What's that?
The bigger picture. Exams are stressful, yes, but they're also part of a larger journey. And sometimes I think we lose sight of that.
You're absolutely right, Mike. It's important to remember that exams are just one measure of your abilities, and they don't define your worth as a person.
They're just a snapshot in time.
And there's so many different paths to success.
So if we don't ace this particular exam, it's not the end of the world. There are other opportunities, other ways to achieve our goals.
Keep your long-term goals in mind, and don't let one exam derail you from pursuing your dreams.
Keep calm, carry on, and remember that there's more to life than exams. Love it.
Wise words, Mike. Wise words.
Well, Sarah, this has been another fascinating segment of our deep dive into exam stress. I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm definitely going to be putting some of these strategies into practice.
Me too, and I hope our listeners will as well. Remember, there's no magic bullet when it comes to managing exam stress. It's about finding what works for you and developing a toolkit of strategies that you can draw on when the pressure is on.
And most importantly, remember that you're not alone in this. Everyone experiences stress, and there are resources available to help you cope.
Don't be afraid to reach out for support, whether it's from friends, family, or professionals.
Well said, Sarah. So to wrap things up, let's go back to the listener, because this whole deep dive is really for them. We've explored a ton of strategies for managing exam stress, from pre-exam prep to test-taking tactics to post-exam recovery.
It's all about equipping you with the knowledge and tools to not just survive exams, but thrive.
Exactly. And I think it's time for a little challenge. Based on everything we've discussed today, what one strategy are you going to try implementing for your next exam?
Think about it. Pick one thing that resonated with you and commit to putting it into action.
Because knowledge is only powerful when it's applied, right?
Absolutely. And that's what we're all about here at the English Podcast Lab. Empowering you with knowledge and giving you the tools to use it in your life.
So if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more fascinating explorations.
We've got a whole universe of knowledge waiting to be unlocked.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay stress-free. We've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive into exam stress, from prepping like pros to staying cool under pressure. And let's be real, exams are a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely. It's about the long game, not just like surviving that one test.
Exactly. And speaking of the long game, we've talked about managing expectations, getting support, and even taking those all-important breaks.
It's a holistic approach, really, taking care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question.
Oh, this is where we get to nudge those amazing brains out there.
I love it. So, dear listener, based on everything we've discussed today, what one strategy are you going to try implementing for your next exam?
That's the real test, isn't it? Putting knowledge into action.
It is. Because let's be honest, information is only powerful when it's used.
Absolutely. And that's what we're all about here at the English Podcast Lab, empowering you with knowledge and the tools to apply it.
Absolutely. So if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more fascinating explorations.
We've got a whole universe of knowledge waiting to be unlocked.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay stress-free.